evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out in the rain to be here for our meeting tonight. This is our special called meeting regarding the recommendations following the salary study. So at this time, the meeting is called to order, and I will take a motion to adopt the agenda. Have a motion from Ms. Kinzer, second from Mr. Lindsay. Any discussion on adopting the agenda? Seeing none, we'll vote. My computer decided to restart, so I'm voting yes. All right, I believe, Mr. Moore, what's yours? Okay, that gives us unanimous approval of our agenda. So let's go ahead and get started. Just for formality and record-keeping purposes, Ms. Kinzer, will you call the roll?
Ms. Parker. Here. Ms. Kinzer's here. Mr. Harlan? Not here. Mr. Fulbright?
Here.
Mr. Moore? Right. Ms. Urban? Present. Mr. Sims? Here. Mr. Hooper? Here. Mr. Howell? Here. Mr. Lindsay? Here. And Mr. Dudley. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the salary study, I will turn it over now to Interim Director Ventura.
Good evening. If you would look at your MCPS proposed salary study attachment, page 2 is for non-teachers, and page 5 is our proposal for all teacher positions. Page 5 is the 75th percentile. I cannot in good conscience recommend the 100th percentile, and I'm sorry to the people behind me. Unfortunately, I just don't feel that that's sustainable. However, if you look at, like I said, page 2 is for non-teachers. That includes classified and administrators and central office staff. And then page 5 will be the 75th percentile, which is the recommendation from me and my team for the teacher pay scale. If you would look at the budget amendment attachment, I know that number is big. I can assure you that what I've asked Mr. Lukonen to do is give us the maximum that this would cost us. Now, we've already gone through and taken out some that had to be posted in a certain amount of time, okay? So what we have spent Monday and Tuesday doing is going through and getting rid of vacant positions. So that cost has come down considerably to the tune of about $400,000. As we go through, we will be able to reduce that. What I wanted to bring to you was the maximum amount that this would possibly cost you. You will notice that none of this is coming out of fund balance. This will all come out of current year budget, because what the budget amendment is presenting to you is that we will begin the new pay scale on June 1st. So the June 15th, the June 30th, the July 1st and the July 31st payrolls will reflect to staff their new salaries. So they'll have 14 months of this salary schedule. I think that provides to our employees the assurance that we are serious. We recognize the fruits of their labor and their hard work, as well as provides a recruitment tool for us to then say, this is the salary for a new teacher, a 5-year teacher, someone coming in as an attendance clerk, a bookkeeper, etc.
Ms. Kinzer, thank you for opening that up.
He probably had his light on first, but I would like to make a motion.
Okay.
I move we accept the recommendation as presented.
Okay, we have a motion from Ms. Kinzer, seconded by Mr. Howell. Do you have any discussion on that? Mr. Lindsay.
Ms. Ventura, in that proposal, is that putting everyone at the step they're in for the 21-22 school year, or are we bumping them up to the 22.
We will bump them up to the next step. So if you're a first-year teacher, in June you will be paid as the second year.
So for clarification, the current step that they're on, they're going to get 10 months pay of that. The next step, they'll actually get 14 months paid rather than 12 months.
Exactly. So it is a raise as well as a bump and a step.
Gotcha. Mr. Chairman, I have a conflict of interest statement I need to read before we vote.
Go ahead.
I have a conflict of interest on the item that we're about to be voted upon. I pledge that my vote's guided by my conscience, and my decision is only made with the best interest of Maury County Schools at heart.
Thank you very much. I have just a couple questions. Mr. Laconin, is this something that you feel like could be sustained through the upcoming budget year
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
without going into fund balance? I guess is what I should have added.
We would have to, it depends on how we structure our operating budget. Cuts could be made to make it there, or we can also anticipate an increase in revenue. So I expect to have that full budget discussion in the first week of April, but if it's the board's priority, I could see that happening, yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? Kind of took all my steam out of the discussion. I was going to give you a big rousing speech on why we needed to go this way, so I guess I'll just save that for another time. I don't see any other discussion, so we're ready to vote. All right, we have a unanimous adoption of this proposal. Moving on to retention proposal.
The next proposal, I have some hesitation about, I'm not going to lie. I have two different schools of thought on this. This proposal comes before you at the request of a couple of board members who were asking what we were going to do about retention of employees. I believe the motion that you just passed is a clear way forward in retention of staff. However, in fairness to those that have asked for what are we doing about retention, I have this proposal in front of you, and you can tell that I did it because it's more juvenile than what Doug would probably put on the agenda. This proposal is basically an immediate signing bonus for teachers who, it would be for teachers only, people who are on the teacher pay scale only, and in May when we hand either a non-renew or a renew letter, we would have a contract prepared. This proposal stipulates that they would receive $1,000 if they committed to Maury County Public Schools. The way I have set up the payout would be that they would receive $250 on May 31st, $250 on June 30th, and then $500 on July 31st. I'll see the whites of their eyes on July 31st, just as an aside. I do think this is a fair proposal. If you look at the budget amendment, the money would have to come out of fund balance. However, I do want to caution you that one of the things that I have told you that I am going to do is I want to kind of marry our ESSER funds with our big budget proposal. So whether we're meeting on April 4th or April 7th, Mr. Fulbright and I have to tie down that. I think we have a date, but I'm not positive. When we present the big budget, I'm prepared to also present the ESSER budget to you, because we have to marry those in this economic time, okay? We can't, I just don't want to rely on fund balance, especially with the proposal you just unanimously passed, okay? So, in the ESSER funds, what I have asked for is some bonus money set aside for all employees, for our bus drivers, for our teachers, to be paid out possibly October, January, March. We're looking at that and trying to figure out what a non-embarrassing amount of a bonus would be. But I think that that's going to come into play as far as what our big budget looks like. And again, I do want to conserve fund balance to the maximum extent possible. But that being said, I've prepared this proposal in the hopes that you know, for those of you who really want to hand a contract to somebody on May 15th, which again I agree with, we don't want empty classrooms in August. We don't want to start school the way we started this year. I think the trajectory for student teachers and people coming into the profession is small. So I do think it is a worthy endeavor to try to capture who we have now and to retain them. My belief is you just did that with our first agenda item. Again, David Moore, it's the will of the board.
Ms. Kinzer.
Well, I agree with what she's saying. I don't think that this is something we need. I would rather think about those areas of real concern like math and ELA and science and so that if we have to do some real bonuses there or something. But I don't see how. I just don't think this would be a setup for failure to some degree to say and Mr. Attorney, I mean, you can't just give them a piece of paper and say it's a contract, that they have to come and work. Things happen and so forth. So then what do? You pay them back, whatever. I just don't like the idea of asking them to say you know, I hope they'll be here. I think if we're going to give them a bonus like you're talking about out of the ESSER funds in the fall, that's incentive enough. And I think we've probably given the biggest raise that we have given since I've been sitting on the board and many years prior to that. And I hope it's the beginning of many more.
Thank you, Ms. Parker.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve this. And if he gets a second.
Second by Mr. Moore.
If I can just speak to it just a minute. I agree that the first motion that was approved, I think it's a good first step, but I still think that we need to do more. And I think this is more, and I think it addresses the need that we have in trying to ensure that we have teachers. And I'll be honest with you, I don't expect for us to hand teachers a thing on May 15th. If we know we want them back, I would hope we're having those conversations with them right now. And I do think that we can give them a document, ask them to sign it, and I mean, I think there's based on when the payments would start, there's about 15 days to review, so I don't think anybody is going to be under any duress whether or not they want to accept it. But I think other places are going to be trying to make themselves as attractive as they can, and I think we need to do all we can. The cost benefit to me is we don't have to train people if we can keep who we have here, and every little bit helps in my mind. And I'm not one that usually likes to spend fund balance just willy-nilly, but I do think that this is something that will benefit not just our teachers but our students, and that to me is what we're charged with taking care of.
Thank you. Ms. Irvin?
So mine comes in a form of a question. I have no problem supporting this, but what's concerning to me is that all of the funds are pretty well paid out before August 1st when school really starts. Is there a reason why we cannot at least keep part of that back till maybe October to where we actually have them in the classroom? I know there's fiscal years and things of that nature. Is that the reason why
Yes,
we've chosen?
the reason is the fiscal year.
Okay.
Our payrolls run through July 31st, and then, bless their hearts, the finance department has to roll everything back to June 30th, and we cannot go beyond that date.
Okay.
Is that
Thank
correct,
you.
Doug?
That's correct. We could, instead of spacing it out, you could put it all on July 31st. You could change how it worked if you wanted to. But if you go beyond July 31st, you wouldn't have it impact this fiscal year, which is what we're projected to perform so well in, and we'd also be expending next year's budget. We may not even have a budget to take that out of fund balance at that time. You can't amend a budget that you don't have. So you would be in a pickle. So it's better to get it on this side. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Lindsay?
I think I tend to agree with Ms. Kinzer and Ms. Ventura. I have no problem with the money side of it. I would just like to see us be more intentional with what the subjects we're trying to target, these hard to fill positions. And then the second problem I have with it, it's kind of my kick lately, but we have classified positions that are hard to fill as well. I mean, there's I think we created 2 positions for Mr. Perriman in Mr. Perriman's maintenance department, and I don't know if we've yet to get an application on those positions yet. So for those 2 reasons, it's not about the money. I would be fine. Let's get into the year and come up with a plan to be more intentional with it. But as of right now, I'm just not comfortable with it.
Thank you, Mr. Howell.
I'm going to agree with Mr. Lindsay and Ms. Kinzer as well. I think that at some point it just kind of looks like we're just trying to throw every dollar we have at a problem, and we do have a problem. I would like to know more about Ms. Ventura's plan to use ESSER funds to give it to everyone, because like Mr. Lindsay said, bus drivers, maintenance people, EAs, these are all hard to fill positions, and so I would definitely like to make sure that we're taking care of everybody. We are taking care of everybody with the raises, so I would like to make sure, and you know what, there may come up where we start filling these teacher positions that we're lacking, and we may find that we just still can't get an application for a math teacher or a science teacher, and maybe that's where this plan comes in. We can focus on what we really need to be focusing on. Not to take away from any other teachers, but it's at this point, it's kind of a law of supply and demand. If you do have a need of 12 science teachers and you don't have a single application, we've got to get those teachers in there. So,
thank you, Ms. Irvin.
So at one point in time, we had talked about the savings that we have incurred because of not funding certain positions, and from my memory, which is rocky, but I'm thinking that was, what was that, like $1.3 million-ish, or?
It was approximately 1.5 million. It was 1.4 and some change. We actually, the budget amendment to start the pay study earlier, we took those funds from that teacher line item rather than digging out of fund balance. So we used those funds that were created by those vacancies to implement the pay study early on the previous vote. So we've used those.
Those have been used then?
Just now on the previous vote. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I'm just thinking out loud because I do hear Mr. Howell's concerns as well, because I personally like this idea of a sign-in bonus because I don't like the idea of having to, scramble to find teachers late July or early August. But I also want to try to find a way to pay attention to those hard-to-fill positions, and we have several, like you say, even from cafeteria workers to bus drivers and such. But I don't know. What would it look like if we took this dollar amount, and did it amongst all faculty? Would it reduce it to like roughly half, or would it be? Because aren't we?
It would be roughly half. We have about 1,800 employees, and this accounts for about 900 teachers.
Okay.
And just a full disclosure, the reason why I don't have this coming out of ESSER is 2 reasons. One, we're looking at what the balance of all our ESSER fundings are and where we are with that, pooling those together and coming up with, like I said, kind of a marriage of big budget and ESSER and what can go where. And again, just full disclosure, ESSER funds have a dead period, and unfortunately we could not give a summer bonus using ESSER funds. So for those of you that are on the fence, I do want you to understand that when I come back with the ESSER proposal, the dates cannot be May, June, and July. There is a time when ESSER closes, we have to rectify those accounts with the feds, and then the money reopens. So probably the earliest bonus we could give would be probably a September, October bonus using ESSER funds.
So let me ask this. I'm assuming the answer is no, but I want to make sure. Can we pre-commit those funds?
Yes, we will pre-commit those funds and redo all of the applications. They will be approved probably around beginning of June, and then unfortunately they drop dead while everything goes back and forth, and they account for that money.
So hypothetically, this is probably not even possible right now, but just hypothetically, if we decided to do something of that nature, because, I mean, honestly, I like the idea of going ahead and potentially having them commit to a position, paying them out in September or October, because then we know the year's rolling, they know it's coming. I wouldn't mind doing something now, like maybe a $250 now. Well, when I say now, I mean May. Is that possible?
Absolutely. You'd be taking the money out of fund balance. We'd have to redo the budget amendment, but you would be committing those first funds out of fund balance, and Doug, jump in here if I'm wrong. You'd be committing those first funds out of fund balance, and then we would commit, and again, that's why I want to bring ESSER to you with the big budget, so that we have a plan going forward. I'm not going to be here. Some of you won't be here. We have to set up for success that budget that starts July 1. So, you know, we've got to have a plan for that. So we could theoretically cut this back and then do second and third payment out of ESSER. I can't commit to you right now how much money we could do in ESSER, because when we had the ESSER conversation, it was, oh wait, what about the bus drivers? Oh wait, what about all those all those positions that need to be filled, that buoy our education system.
Okay.
Good, thank you. Ms. Parker.
I just want to say, one of the reasons why I like this idea of the bonus is the hard-to-fill positions, the math teachers, the SPED teachers that we haven't had. We've had to have those positions filled in some instances by teachers covering for planning or teacher assistants or whatnot. And I guess this wouldn't necessarily help teacher assistants, but it would help those teachers that have given and had to cover or had to share their assignments when there isn't a science teacher, and making sure that students without a science teacher have the information that they need. So in my mind, this is helping support the teachers that have worked so hard this year when we have had these vacancies, and that's why I would really like to see us do that. But it also addresses the second issue I feel like we have, which is to make sure that we retain these teachers. Now, as far as classified staff, those type of positions, I'm not opposed to us looking at a bonus for them too. If Mr. Perryman hasn't been able to fill a position, then he should theoretically have some savings that he could come back, and then we could distribute that amongst his staff. If Mr. Parkhurst has positions that haven't been filled under his budget, then he could theoretically come back and ask for bonuses for those. So it's not that I don't want to look at all of those positions. I'm just saying, to me, this addresses the fact that we've had teachers that have busted their butts this year to help make sure the kids that did not have teachers had information, had an education, had the resources that they need to hopefully be successful in their classes. And then we're also trying to make sure that those same teachers that have busted their butts all year are going to come back, so that we don't then have to train a new set of teachers. Now, at this point, I'll just be honest, when we start talking about and we had talked about hard-to-fill positions a while back, and a plan for that, we never got anything specific on that. And I imagine that we would get that from Ms. Ventura if we asked for it. We obviously got this very quickly. So there's potential for a plan going forward, but I'm kind of concerned that all positions are somewhat hard to fill at this point. I mean, I've heard, positions that used to have, dozens of applicants, now you might get 2 applicants. So to me, whatever we can do to try to compensate our teachers for the work that they put in this year, but also to try to make sure that we're not having to invest to retrain a new set of teachers, let's try to keep some continuity, and to me, that's what this does. Again, classified other positions, I'd love to see a bonus proposal for them as well. Be happy to consider it.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you. I was going to say, I will be voting against this, actually. And it's not because I don't like where this is going. I absolutely think this is the direction we need to go. I know I've said it in the last meeting, and I just voted to approve the new pay structure we've got But I'll say again, that's not going to solve the problem. Every study on the planet has shown that's what happens in any kind of shortage situation. One of the reasons I won't be supporting this or voting for this tonight is because, first of all, it's not supported by staff, and I just don't think it's going to go anywhere. And I'm very uncomfortable when this board kind of throws something in your laps and asks you guys to just make it happen. I feel like we need a comprehensive retention plan that we do not have. I hear you're starting to talk about that, and this is really the first we've talked about this that I can recall, so I do appreciate that you're starting to talk about it. But I think we need to have a comprehensive plan on retention for all staff members, especially the hard-to-fill positions. And I don't think this goes far enough, to be honest, to truly address that. I think we need to address, and I think Ms. Parker's actually on the right track here, talking about the student impact part of this. One of the things that I'm very concerned about is when we have some schools that are harder to get positions in than others. And those kids are seeing a turnover of staff that is just insane. And I would love to find a way to incentivize teachers to stay at a certain school for a length of time, to give those kids some stability that other kids in the county do get because they do have stable teaching staffs at those schools. I would like to try to figure out how to compensate teachers for that. So I would like us, I just don't think this is enough. I think it's probably a start. We kind of went all out on the line item and used those funds already, as we were just talking about. So we're left with only asking for this to come from fund balance. But if we can continue to talk about this, and I expect that we need to, because I think we will be sorely, we will be hurting even worse if we don't address this in some way for the next year. So I would love to see very targeted things coming up next year. But for this one, I think I'm going to have to pass on it.
Okay. Mr. Howell.
So I just don't like the idea of a bonus. It's here you go, thanks. What about next year? What about the year after that? I just don't see this as something that is a commitment. $1,000 bonus to sign, I don't think that's, I would rather see if we're going to do something, I'd like to see every last dollar we have going towards salary. That's the commitment that we need to make. That's how you recruit and retain people, is you pay them the absolute best that you can. And I don't think we've done that. And we're on the right track. We're going towards that way. I feel like we're moving forward. But I don't see a bonus as keeping someone here or not, especially a $1,000 bonus. To me, a bonus is something that is a tool that we can use to reach certain objectives. And I'm not in any way suggesting we do this, but if we want to have level 5 teachers, and we say, if you reach level 5, you get a bonus. If there's certain specific objectives you meet that we set, that's what I think is the incentive to get that bonus. Just hanging out and being here, if they're going to hang out and be here, they've made that commitment to us. I feel we should make a commitment to them and pay a salary that's commensurate to what they're doing. There's so many things I could talk about. You've got EAs subbing for classrooms. They don't get paid to be subs. Why are we not talking about that? You've got people in our central office that are driving buses. They don't get paid to drive buses. I would rather not pay them to drive buses. That's an awfully expensive bus driver. I'd rather them doing their job. So, I would like to look at, and if we're going to spend any extra money out of fund balance or anything, I don't want it to be a bonus. I want it to be going to the actual bottom line salary of that teacher, or HVAC person, or bus driver, or cafeteria worker. Bonuses are just that. That is just a very non-committal way to say, hey, we care, sort of. I want to make sure that we keep people and we are able to recruit them. You can't recruit them with a $1,000 bonus. That's just not going to get the job done.
Thank you. Mr. Lindsay.
I need to read my statement again.
Okey-doke.
I have a conflict of interest in the item about to be voted upon. I pledge my votes guided by my conscience, and my decision is only made in the best interest of Maury County Schools at heart.
Thank you very much. Let me ask a couple questions since I don't see any more lights. It sounds like everybody else knows the answer to this, but I don't. Is this something that we would do on an annual basis?
No. This would be this year. And if you, again, if you wanted to put that in your budget for next year, we could absolutely look at how many FTEs we are putting in the budget. for growth, and then estimate how much it would cost us to go with $1,000 budget or go with a $1,500 budget. I mean, that's pretty simple math. So we could absolutely look at doing it annually, but you would have to put it in your budget. Or we could put it on the agenda for every April that we discuss it, depending on what you got in fund balance,
Well,
you know.
And that's kind of where I'm going, because if we lock ourselves into it being salary, then we are obligated to it regardless.
Correct.
But if we keep a small portion of that back as a signing bonus, then we could look at it on a year-to-year basis. Not that that's a better option, but it is an option.
And we are hopeful that the ESSER bonuses will be 2 years. They will be for next year and the year after,
Well, and that
before
kinda
those drop-dead funds.
That, part two of that same question is exactly what Mr. Moore said. Could we not work this in to an ongoing retention plan, an annual bonus of some kind?
Absolutely. And we do have, it's very little, but we do have differentiated pay that we are looking at that budget right now and trying to figure out how that fits into all of this.
And I guess that's where it's not really throwing something against the wall if we use this as a first step to accomplish goals down the road.
Correct.
My last thing, and this a little bit off subject, but as far as the bonuses on hard-to-fill positions go, I feel a little bit burnt by that. Not that anything really bad has happened, but I know of at least one instance where we had a math teacher who was asked to sub for the rest of the year in a science class, moved to the science class, and a month later we approved the bonus for math teachers. So, you know, I kind of want to avoid some of these where we do look like we're
And to Ms.
and
Parker's
choosing.
point, every single teaching position is a hard-to-fill position. I mean, there was a time when we would post a fourth-grade elementary teacher and we'd have at least 52 applicants. It's not happening now.
Right. And I think this is a step in the right direction. I think the key to keeping the vacancies low is not letting people go to start with. Not letting them leave to start with, because if they make the choice to leave, there's your vacancy. And we need to take away every reason that they're leaving and address those. Any other, Ms. Irvin?
So, and again, I know $1,000 is not a lot of money in today's world, but this would also not only be for employees currently, it would be a carrot to dangle at job fairs. Is that correct? Because it would be for any future employee, or no? Just
this
for
would be this proposal is a commitment from a current teacher to come back in July.
Okay.
Now, again, we can look at when we build our budget in the next couple weeks how we want to circle those wagons and continuously look at retention and recruitment. But this proposal is for the current employees. We currently have 866 teaching positions filled right now. So again, that budget amendment is for that maximum. I can't guarantee that everybody's going to sign, but if every single person signs, that's what that budget amendment is for.
I had one more question I wanted to ask. Now I'm not going to get to. No, actually, we have to take a vote on the call for the question. We've had a call for the question. Do we have a second for the call for the question? Second for Mr. Hooper. Yeah, voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Because I had one more question. All right. Call for the question passes. We'll go ahead and vote on this proposal as presented by our staff. Our motion by Ms. Parker, seconded by Mr. Moore. Okay, that one does not pass. Here's my question that I was going to ask. And it's totally a useless point at this juncture. But I do want us to start looking at if we do something as far as retention goes, if we do offer something now, I do want to see us go back and study the results and talk to the teachers and say, what was it that brought you back, other than the love of the children? Was it the increase in salary? Was it the signing bonus? Those are the things I want us to start looking at, not just in this realm, but in every realm. And I know you can at least be a voice in the ear of whoever might be doing that at that time. All right, is there any other? Oh, well, let's go to benefit discussion. Benefits.
I don't know if this is appropriate. I'm new at this, so please forgive me. I was asked several questions by board members at the last work session, one of which was the cost of retirees' insurance. And then there was a discussion about, are we paying a high enough percentage of employee-dependent health insurance? I guess I just need direction from this board. Are we talking about cost-cutting savings, or are we talking about competitive benefits? The cost of the retirees to the district is $1,065,000. And I think that question was kind of brought in the vein of, to quote the board member, she would rather pay for her teacher's retirement, her children's teachers, than her husband's, and that's fair. So I wanted to make sure she had that number. But, and others had asked, but then there was the whole discussion of, okay, are our benefits competitive? I can't build you a budget if I don't know if we're talking cost cutting or if we're talking competitive. And again, I apologize. I just don't know. I listened to that board meeting 5 or 6 times, and just thought, I have no direction on this, and no direction to work with Mr. Lukonen to say, where are we heading?
Okay, thank you. Ms. Kinzer.
Honestly, I know it came up, and I think what when we looked at the salary study, the one area in which we were not competitive was in family. And just so you know, as a history of this, the state pays 55%. We, for years and years and years, we paid 45%. And then maybe 10 years ago, before anybody on this board was on here, they negotiated that down to 40%. The only thing I don't think this is a year, I think we need to look at it. I think it might be something for next year's budget as well. It may even be something they want to discuss in collaborative conferencing about your benefits. But I think when it was brought up, we were looking at across the board, where were we good, where were we strong, where were we not. That particular one was kind of glaring as to how much the employee has to pay for family. So the only thing I might like to look at is the percentage we paid, which would lower that, because our support people are the ones that are really paying the price on that. If they have family medical and they don't make that much salary, they're practically using all their salary for that. But I personally don't want to do anything about benefits right now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lukonen, did you have something?
Just a report on medical insurance costs for this upcoming year. Specifically, our cost for this upcoming fiscal year is already going up 1.25%, and that's just because of last year's 2.5% increase, and our enrollment takes effect in January. So every year we get a letter from Partners of TN Health to tell us what the increase for next year is going to be. I haven't gotten that letter from them yet. So right now our increase is 1.25% before that letter shows up. I have gotten a letter before that says there's no increase this year. I hope to get that letter again, or maybe a decrease. I highly doubt it. So, but just to let you all know that. Also, for the 2021 budget, fiscal year 2021 budget, I did present some options to the board of basically how you could save money with the health insurance plan here. And we've got enrollment numbers, we've got everybody's plan. So if there are proposals you all wanted to see for next year or during this year's budget discussion, we could look at moving the needle on family coverage, if that's the will of the board.
Thank you very much. Ms. Irvin?
So my answer, which is one of 11, I'm sure you can ask 11 of us and get 11 different answers, but mine was for competitive purposes. And yes, I know that our family was a little bit higher, but we also have to consider that our individual coverage that we pay was $75 cheaper. So really with that, you're not going to get to the family without first having to pay your other. So I think we are okay on that right now. But what I really want to see is I want to know what we're doing. I want to see what teachers see. I know, like, you know, in collaborative conferencing, I'm in that currently. A lot of those benefits, I don't know that someone who's looking at Murray County as opposed to, say, one of our neighboring counties, that they fully see what all we offer, like in the Memorandum of Understanding. And I want to look at, because whenever I was a teacher and I looked at what, I mean, literally salary, like Mr. Howell said, that's all I really had to go off of. And then whenever I had to dig deeper, and it was deeper, then that's when you got to the other. But I'd like to see something that is very out front, that all of our employees know what exactly we're giving them, and our future employers, because I think we've got a lot of grand things potentially coming that we're talking about. And my thing is, I just want to know how to get people here, not elsewhere. And I know that sounds bad, but that's all of our goal, is to attract people to Murray.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other lights. I want to just kind of, there's nothing that we, oh, I didn't even see your light down there. Go ahead. Sorry, Ms. Parker.
Sorry. I didn't realize that you were gonna cut, that nobody else had their light on. I will say, I think when we're talking about increases, we can't talk about increases without potentially looking at where we're spending other money. And so I'm not saying that I don't want to spend the money that we currently have obligated on certain things, but I do think if it's not something that we're using to try to retain teachers or employees, if it's not something that we're using to recruit teachers or employees, then I think we need to look at whether or not we need to continue on with that being a potential benefit. For example, on the retiree insurance, I've always heard that that is a huge benefit that a lot of teachers around here like. But I also know that in a lot of other areas, they sunsetted that many years ago. So I'm not saying I want to turn the spigot off, but I also realize if when we looked at our numbers, we're not getting a bunch of people that are coming in at 20 years to finish out their career here. So if that's not something that's really that appealing, then why are we still paying that benefit is my question. And you may tell me that it's worth it. I just think we have to know what the numbers are in order to be able to determine whether or not that cost is worth what we're expending when we're raising what we have to pay for insurance and for salaries just before we even start the budget process. We already know that based off of what we just did and what Doug just said about insurance.
Thank you. Mr. Laconin, you said 1-point-something%?
1.25%.
What does that translate to? Do you know offhand?
It translates to just round numbers. I would say about $300,000 to $400,000.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Ventura, did you have something you wanted to add to?
No, I like I said, I didn't want to pick on Ms. Parker. I completely understand, and that's the conversation I want to have. Do we need to start? Is that the path we want to go on? Looking at our budget, I mean, we can highlight those things so that we can have that conversation and decide. I mean, and those are probably surveys that I need to send out to staff to find out. And we do have collaborative conferencing tomorrow, so that I just needed. That's what I needed to hear, Ms. Parker. Exactly what you just said is we need to have that balance.
Yes. Well, and I just want to stress, though, I mean, I appreciate the work that board members and staff and teachers are putting into collaborative conferencing, but that MOU doesn't get presented to us like in the next month or two, I don't believe. So, I mean, we're going to have to build a budget without knowing the final decisions that are made at collaborative conferencing, and then the MOU still has to be approved by this board. So, you know, I think it's good to get direction, but it's not binding on anybody at this point. The actions of this board are what's gonna determine how we build that budget.
Ms. Irvin, were you trying to?
I just want to say, in addition to what she's saying, I want it marketed. I want it to be, that's what the key component is. Because that is a huge benefit, and I bet a lot of people don't even know that that's a benefit. And, you know.
All right, thank you. This time I don't see any lights on. Wait a minute, wait. Not yet. I just wanted to point something out real quick. Well, don't let him get you in trouble. One of the things that I think this board has been very proactive with is once we saw that we had started to allow our buildings to crumble and fall apart around us, we developed the 5-year plan. We did a study. We put the money that we needed to behind it, presented it to the county commission, and they were behind it because we had a plan to address our problem. I don't think it's any stretch of the imagination to see the same exact thing we've let happen to our buildings currently happen to our staff and our teachers. We've let those things deteriorate. We haven't looked at the benefits package in however long. We talked about that, how it may have been great 25 years ago, but we need to refresh it now. A lot of those buildings we had were great 25 years ago, but we needed to address them now. And I think that gives us, me leaving this meeting, I feel like we've thrown a lot of money around. But I also look back and say we've also addressed a problem that we are now prioritizing as a high priority. 5 years ago it was our facilities. Now it's our teaching staff. And I think if we go with that mindset into the budget, that will give us a lot of credibility when it comes to asking the county commission. It'll show that if we have a retention plan, that's the other thing I want to be able to take to the commission. And I think we're on a good path. So I want everybody to know, not that anybody was really concerned up here anyway, that this isn't just throwing money at a problem, which I hear a lot of times. This is truly prioritizing a problem and taking steps to address it. Mr. Lindsay.
And just to piggyback on that, this board gets beat up a lot of times for things that we take the brunt of things that really don't fall on us, but that's okay. But just so it's known, we just committed ourselves to $6 or $7 million of reoccurring expenditures going into salaries, and I say that I'm totally fine with it, but that vote we took, the first vote we took tonight, was a major step. That wasn't just a little bit of money. This $6 or $7 million is going to come back every year. So.
Well, and I would just close by saying it is going to add $6 to $7 million. I think that our budget for next year should not increase by $6 or $7 million. I think we should be looking for some areas to trim back to make this a more realistic, long-lasting thing. All right, now I will entertain a motion to adjourn from Mr. Moore, seconded by Ms. Kinzer. All those in favor, stand up and walk out of the room.